What does 4:7, Genesis 4:7 mean when it says, thou shalt rule over him? So get Genesis 4, verse 7. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So let's start with this phrase. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. So what God is saying to Cain is that if he offers the proper sacrifice, he'll be accepted. But then he says, and if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And the idea there is, if you don't want to do well, sin is always present and nearby. So you know this, but here's the way life works when you have a sin nature. If you don't want to do well, how hard is it for you to get into trouble? Does it take you hours and hours to find some sort of trouble to get into? Do you have to call someone and ask help, or are you perfectly capable of getting in trouble on your own? That's the idea. It's that there's always if you want to make a sinful choice, sin lieth at the door. You can always do that. Now notice the next part of the verse. And unto thee shall be his desire. Sin desires to run your life. Sin desires to run your life. In other words, sin would be more than happy to run your life. And put it this way. This is a simple example, but no one starts out drinking a case of beer a day. They don't. They start out with smaller sins, and then those sins lead to bigger sins, and those sins lead to bigger sins. The point being that if you give sin the opportunity, will sin run every aspect of your life? And the answer is yes. Unto thee shall be his desire. Now, look with me at Romans chapter 6, verse 12. Romans chapter 6 and verse 12. So Romans 6:12. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that ye should obey it in the lusts thereof. So what sin wants to do is sin wants to run your life. But what choice should you make? You should make the choice to let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body. That's going to be a decision that you have to make. Now notice the last part of Genesis 4, verse 7, and it says, and thou shalt rule over him. What I think that phrase is indicating is the following. Sin desires to rule over you. And so you're going to have to decide one of two things. You're either going to let sin rule over you, or you're going to rule over sin. You're going to have to make the decision, right? It's easy and tempting to give in to sin. Hebrews talks about the pleasures of sin for what? For a season. So sin produces pleasure for a season, but of course it reaps a horrible consequence. And that's why what needs to happen is each individual needs to make the decision to rule over sin in their life.